All right, I'd like to invite the Prime Minister to open up the round. Here, here. What do you want to do?
Can I get some lights down here?
Yeah, you don't need to use this.
My speech starts in 3, 2, 1. Good morning, generous speaker, honorable judges, and participants of the debate. Today we're talking about the movie production itself. What movie is we actually think that movie is actually a culture which can actually provide people different diversities and different thoughts. The movie itself can actually be as a notice of culture to the people who are outside of our country. That's why we're today agreeing to the motion saying that countries with a large volume of movie production should aggressively prioritize exporting their films in global market. Firstly, I would like to, as a Prime Minister, I would like to characterize some of the parts that we are going to debate about. So firstly, what we are going to call the large volume of movie production in government side is going to be with the large volume of movie production which is less known, which is more exported and needed. As an example, this can be India's Bollywood or Nigeria's Bollywood as the motion given. And we would like to point out that even though Hollywood has a large volume of movie production, they're already exported, so it doesn't match in this kind of motion. And throughout the exporting the films, we are going not just only taking the exporting films in cinema, but these kind of movies can be actually exported by new international showcases and international competitions. As you know, there are many competitions inside Korea too, such as Jeonju Film Festival, or those kind of film festivals. Why we are talking about this, introducing to another country like this, and the competitions and the showcases is actually because we are going to talk about diversity today. So the main world which the government actually thinks is that when the movie itself has a diversity, and also the world have more diversity inside inside the culture itself. And we would like to point out why it should be global market. A global market right now. The world as we see, world is changing. We like before 30 years ago, we just have pop as our music preferences, but now the culture for now we are actually the world is accepting Korean K-pop as a new source of music preferences. So there are many. The trend used to be from American to it is moving toward the world. So it is actually being more diverse, and now we are thinking that exporting these movies right now can actually work them as a new kind of culture, and it would bring the same effect as K-pop did, as K-movie did. It will actually bring their diversity inside the movie trend itself. Now, I would like to suggest 2 arguments. First is that this prioritizing exporting films can actually bring goods to the movie industry itself. How can this bring goods to the movie industry itself? As a stakeholder of movie industry, there are 3 kinds why it is going to benefit. Firstly, it will give more people to choose, and therefore they can make more people to get noticed in the movie industry. As I've mentioned, there are many kinds of competitions and film festivals, such as Jeonju or BICC. In these kinds of competitions, we can notice new kinds of movies if we export those kind of movies here. So the people would have more choices in those movies, just not only the Hollywoods or the movie just we used to see, but they were actually going to notice there are different kinds of movies too. Secondly, they're gonna have diversity. As I keep mentioning about it, they're gonna have diversity. Not only the Hollywood culture, Hollywood movie, just dominating the whole movie scene. The movie scene, the movie scene itself is going to have actually more choices, and they would have more interesting movies coming inside. And what this will gonna cause is that the movie industry itself is going to be a competitive market. Having more movies inside their cultures, having more interesting movies inside the movie industry itself will actually bring more people to notice the choices, and it will therefore be more competitive. And also, we would like to talk about it is good for the country that is exporting the movie, and it is going to be good for the movie movie industry inside that country too. Why this would be good for them is going to be because we see exporting films is, as we mentioned in the characterization, it would be also a way to export the culture itself. So as we just exported K-cultures throughout movies, as you see, like many of the people have seen Parasites, and they now notice that, oh, Korea has that maze, Korea has, you know, those kind of like family family views, and like those cultures. Oh, is it POF? Oh, okay. And we like and they're having like so many more like Korean cultures inside involving. So like we thought that these kind of large volume of movie production, which is less known and less exported, would have possibility to export their culture and like make more people notice about their culture. This is going to be explained more in our Deputy Prime Minister's speech. So I would like to consider this as, I would like to just exemplify some of these. And so in these reasons, we can bring more goods to the movie industry itself, and we can actually, the movie industry inside that country, and the movie production itself is having benefits. In these kind of reasons, we are asking why we should not do this, and we definitely agree to the government definitely agreed to the motion. Speaker, I would like to.
Thank you, Prime Minister, for the fine speech. I'd like to invite the Leader of Opposition to open up Ops case. You're here.
I will start my speech in 3, 2, 1. As a Leader of Opposition, my speech will be a combination of our case of build and the rebuttals that we want to make. And we want to start with the first problem of their case, which is the wrong reflection of the culture. First, we already saw in the motion is that we have large volume of movie production, and we also know that every producer has their own characteristic to say to express in the movies, and having a large volume of production cannot be guaranteed that every movie can show the culture properly. So this is the first case that can be taken with the wrong reflection of the culture. And the second case is adaptation. When you producing a movie to another market, you should be also adapt that movie for the other country itself. For example, language. Language change everything. Language change jokes, and jokes and other like insights. The understanding can be changed even if it's the language. And also that I said before, like the adaptation, they should adapt to the culture that they export the movie and the culture itself, and it will be also make a confusion of the culture reflection itself. And also, even if they prioritize the cultural thing and want to show the cultural thing, for example, like the national clothes or something, and it will be it can be let people's mind in like stereotyping in other person's mind in other countries, and it also affects some of the minorities who live in the another countries, foreigners in the other countries. they will have certain stereotyping of culture, and when they are living in the other country, instead of they looking for their own characteristics, they can match some stereotyping to that kind of person, and it can be led to them not showing them the first impression itself. And we know that first impression is important. I will take after 6 minutes. It's important in the first case when it comes to the communication of the other people, and also second, the thing that they we can understand that they have large volume of movie production can be seen as like they have already viewers at domestic market, because like if you don't have viewers, so why in the first place you want to make a movie production? Because like the movie has a lot of financial abilities and need financial abilities. So if you have a large one in your domestic market, it means that you have an already audience in your domestic market. And we will explain why you should focus more on this domestic market will be also important in the global market in the long term. So first, they will adapt their movies, and after the adaptation, they can lose their own domestic viewers at the first place, because the movie itself can be changed, the expectation of the audience will be changed, and it will be also led to their decrease in their audience that they already have. And also there's has a financial burden in their side too, because if they want to aggressively protest, I will explain about it further. The global market, they also need to make resources for them. For example, language, for example, translation. That kind of things also need financial resources. Formats, other producers, they need to hire other producers, and they need to make other scenes in other countries in order to adapt to the culture, and it will be also make a financial burden in the first place that we don't have in our case. So that's the problem that they have. And also we want to focus on that. I think the Prime Minister has a definition problem about like the aggressively prioritizing, but the thing that they always say like exporting and seeing the film festivals and film history, but in our motion we are saying that aggressively prioritize exporting their films. But in our case, we are not saying that won't be any exportation in the other markets. We just like stay in the domestic market. We are not saying that. It can be happen in the long term in our case too. And why it will be better in our case? Because we are focusing on our domestic audience, and domestic audience already have options and opinions about our movies, and they can better comment and better criticize our movies as much as they know our culture either. And if we want to get feedback from them, we can easily develop our movies in the first place, and it will be more important. And also we know that we have certain audience in here, but we don't know that in the global market it will be audience in their side, because it's not sure that they will also adapt the culture. They will like the movie. We are not sure about it, but we are sure about our domestic audience. So it's important in the first place, and it won't be make a waste of movie, because if we prioritize our domestic industry, of course there will be film festivals and other things in the first place. Then these film festivals will have opportunity to show compared this smaller volume of the movies that can also go to the global, and it will be not like every movie that export like aggressively and just like prioritizing, aggressively pushing them to the market. That will be
Your
okay.
I would like to mention that you've mentioned that culture would bring stereotype to some minorities, but I agree if it was one or two movies being exported, but in those kind of exportations, it would be various movies being imported. I don't understand why it would bring stereotypes since there was so much movies being imported.
Yeah, I think it's the problem in the first place, because it will also lead like confusion of the culture either. That I explained for this is the first problem in their case. it's a confusion about the person identity, and it will be also make harder to see as a person, because like if you saw in this movie as a Turkish people, like that kind of stereotype, like they don't like take a shower or something, like they kind of stereotype, because we are like characterizing something in the movies. And it will be also if you go to abroad, and if someone who watched this movie can also have a stereotype that yeah, you can be that kind of person. And I'm talking about that first impression, and its impression can be done for the all movie that you can export. So we are talking about like quality of the films of export, and in our case we producing more quality of films to export to the other market, focusing on our domestic market. Thank you.
I thank the LO for the fine speech. I'd like to call upon the Deputy Prime Minister here.
My speech starts in 3, 2, 1. So before I start developing our side's argument, I would like to have an emphasis on our characterization. So in our characterization, the large production, the motion states is actually not including Hollywood, and we are characterizing large production as like Bollywood and Nollywood, which are not the majority in the worldwide film industry, even though comparing to the production involving Western culture like Hollywood, the production scale is much bigger in those Bollywood and Nollywood. So we would like to remind our characterization in our side, and I'll start giving rebuttals to the previous speaker. So the leader of opposition suggested that those kind of large production countries actually have to focus on domestic industry, and they have to move on to exporting their film to global market. However, we believe that we would like to emphasize our characterization again. So in our side, as our side mentioned Bollywood and Nollywood, we would like to especially focus on Bollywood. So India has large population, and the domestic industry in status quo is already stabilized. So we are comparing, we would like to argue that the domestic industry's stability is already achieved in those kind of countries, and considering the global trend, as our Prime Minister mentioned, which is moving from the major Western culture to diversity like other cultures such as K-pop. So we are arguing that it is appropriate time for those large production countries to try exporting their films to global market instead of staying in the domestic industry. And we believe that it is appropriate time for them to let others know about their culture and strengthen their soft power of their country. And also the leader of opposition mentioned that by exporting their film to global market, it can actually it can strengthen stereotypes of the country. However, we believe that it is unlikely to happen, and the leader of opposition actually failed to explain the mechanism how exporting their film to global market causes other countries to build stereotypes on them. And I would also like to rebut the argument that it can have financial burden on the countries. However, we acknowledge that it can be somewhat be financial burden for the countries to try to export their films to global markets. However, we believe that it is short-term effect, short-term harm and short-term effect. And actually, in our side, is trying to achieve diversity and like promoting their culture and like gain soft power. So we actually think that the long-term effect over our side is actually stronger than the short-term effect of the opposition side. And I'd like to start by adding on our Prime Minister's argument that they can actually promote their culture and culture and also strengthen their soft power by exporting film to global market. So I'd like to explain the mechanism. So according to the status quo and our characterization, the large production is not widely known and is not consumed by the rest of the world, even though it is larger in scale comparing to like other major film industry like Hollywood. We believe that exporting films can actually benefit the country, for example, India, and also Nigeria. As our PM mentioned, the current trend in the world is moving away from the Western white-centered culture to diversity such as Asian culture, So gaining the world's attention to Asian culture actually really benefited Asian countries, as Korea was also benefited from it, and the Korea's soft power got stronger. As these incidents, the countries like Nigeria and India, which countries that are not which countries' culture is
Can you explain it further, like what they won't be stereotyped in the other countries because of their films?
Sorry?
Can you explain further that, like, why won't be stereotyping in the other countries because of the large exporting their films?
So we would like to focus on this matter in terms of like these countries are actually promoting their culture because their culture is not really well known yet. And I believe that stereotyping actually can happen when the culture is really well known and like people are adding on like stereotypes on those kind of culture. And I'd like to begin my argument. So we believe that as these like Asian countries incidents, the countries like Nigeria and India can also get benefits from exporting their films and promote their culture, which is not really well known to the rest of the world.
Thank you, DPM, for the speech. I'd like to call upon the Deputy Leader of Opposition. Here.
I would like to start my speech in 3, 2, 1. Before going into my speech, I would like to emphasize how the first phase of getting the domestic market growth would be the most important thing in order to lead to globalization. It is not that just submitting movies to movie festivals, it's just that just submitting movies to movie festivals won't automatically bring the attention to the movies itself. The quality and the competitiveness would be the most important attribute that is needed in order to gain the attention that is needed from the global market. So I think it is the government's burden to prove how and exactly why the global market would have attention to the movies of India and Nigeria, aside from the fact that only the trend is changing. The fact that trend is changing doesn't mean that people would give attention to a random Indian movie just because they think diversity is more important. The quality of the movie and the interest and the movie being interesting would be the biggest importance to the global audiences. So what we're saying is that through focusing on the growth of domestic industry, we would be able to make the global audience pay attention to our to the movies. First of all, what we need to do through making the domestic industry growth is, first of all, in order to gain the attention from the global audience, there needs to be some kind of sympathizing points that the global audiences can also sympathize on. Through getting the feedbacks from our domestic audiences, we can combine the common traces that are within all people, including the global audiences, and also the local cultural attributes, which would form a unified identity of the movies of the countries that have a large volume of movie production as well. We can have those kinds of feedback from the local audiences since, as our PM mentioned, there is already a sufficient demand within the country, and through getting the feedback submitted, we can domestic movie industry can seek a way to find improvement within the cultural aspects and also the common trace aspects within the movie. It can be only made by domestic audiences, since domestic audiences are the ones who know the cultural attributes of the country better than the global audiences. So through this, the quality of the movie would be enhanced in the long term. So there are harmful things that can happen within the domestic movie industry if the country aggressively prioritizes exporting their films to global markets. First of all, as we said, there are already sufficient demand within the country. But however, if aggressive exporting is prioritized, the movie industry would have to change the movie in a very aggressive way, so that the global market would be able to adapt to those kind of movies as well. So it would not be a gradual change, it would be kind of a radical change within the movie industry. So it would lose the domestic audiences in the short term, which would be a very harmful thing for the domestic movie industry itself. So it would be difficult to make the growth of the domestic industry and make the quality of the movies better in the long term. And that would be why our side of the world has a long-term benefit to the global market. And also, I would like to rebut on the opposition's point that stereotyping is unlikely to be formed, because stereotype happens when the people are really well known. As a matter of fact, minorities are the people who are most likely to get stereotypes, since people don't know about them. People don't know about them, so they can think anything about them. For example, let's say Asian culture is not known to the Western culture right now, then they can just think that because they don't know about the Asian cultures right now, they can just think that Asians just bow with it this way or something like that. And yeah, and why they would get stereotypes is also because the contents in the movie would be radically changed, and it would be a distorted image of the domestic people, since since the movies should be radically changed into a way that would adapt to the global audience's taste, so it would become a more distorted stereotype than it existed before. So that is why we would like to emphasize that the first phase of making the growth of domestic industry would be a better thing for the domestic industry in the long term. Thank you.
Thank the Leader of Opposition for the speech. Now I'd like to invite the government whip to continue on government's case right here.
So I'd like to start off my speech with stating the two factors that I think are important in today's debate. The first being the possibility of success of exploring these movies and how realistic it is. The second would be the long-term effects, whether it will spread culture or spread stereotypes and instead alienate the domestic audience. So first, on the possibility of success, first, we have already characterized that the global market is open to diversity, and I would like to, and the opposition has attempted to rebut that by saying that this push towards diversity doesn't mean that movies from diverse movies will automatically gain attention, but that is not the case in the status quo, because if you look at trends on social media on the global front, this push towards diversity is actively being shown in interest towards foreign cultures, like the rise of K-pop or the rise of movies like 기생충, or like for the matter of blackness, like black culture being shared, like box braids being done by white people. Everyone is trying to share in this culture, and they're all showing interest. And this is the way culture works. If someone is interested in K-pop, they are interested in the language, the food, the movies. This is all a widespread, and one thing leads to the other. Also, the opposition has raised the issue of financial burden, but we would like to flip their point about the already procured audience of the domestic market, because that means they already have a stable financial support system that they can build upon to jump towards the international audience. And to rebut on the stereotype front, their first point about stereotypes was that every producer has individuality, but they failed to remember that that producer is still from that culture, that country, and shares in that culture, and everything they make will automatically show that culture, even in subtle ways. We're not saying that everyone in these movies should be in hanbok or go through gyeongbokgung, but we are saying that our culture can be shown in subtle ways, like in 기생충. They had one of the characters sing the song for Dokdo, and that trended internationally. And the second, they tried to rebut by saying that even if our culture is spread, even though the producers have individuality, these stereotypes, this will result in stereotypes, and these stereotypes will hurt minorities. And they tried to make a weak example of a Turkish person not taking showers, and the international audience trying to interpret that as saying that every Turkish person does not take showers. I think the audience watching, however uneducated they are, would understand that this is a movie, and that not every Turkish person does not take showers. Also, even if stereotypes spread, not all stereotypes are false or negative. Negative and false stereotypes are less likely to be spread by movies made by these minorities themselves. And besides, if their point is that stereotypes are created because the audience does not know these minorities well, should not the movies be exported so that they can know these cultures and so lessen the probability of stereotypes? And also, the opposition tried to make a point that our benefits are not exclusive to their case because they're not entirely giving up on the export front. They're just not pursuing it as aggressively. But again, I would like to point out that there is urgency in this case because the global market is interested in diversity now. So we need to ride this wave and soar higher. Second, on the long-term front, they tried to say that the domestic audience knows the culture better, so that's just going to help the culture flourish in the long term. I think that does not make sense, and there is no mechanism provided because I think it would be more likely for the industry and culture to stagnate inside its own little bowl because there is nothing new.
Kyuin?
Do you think the quality of Indian and Nigerian movies are even similar to the movies that are globally famous? And do you even think that just pushing them in the global movie exhibitions will be enough to be comparable?
Well, if you're asking my personal opinion, I think I liked Indian movies. I thought they were fun, and I did not think them as less than Hollywood movies. So I think there is a pretty good chance of success. Also, they try to say that if we try to adapt these movies to promote internationally, it will result in a loss of the domestic market because it would alienate the audience. But in fact, if the movie trends internationally and gains worldwide renown, people may be more incentivized to watch these movies. Like for Kisaeng-chung, I watched it because it won an Oscar. Thank you for listening to my speech.
Thank you, Noah, for the speech. I'd like to call upon the operator. Here.
I'll start my speech in 3, 2, 1. So as the opposition whip, I would like to just move on to analyzing clashes and then explain why our team provided better arguments against the government team. I identified 2 different clashes. First is the necessity of adaptation, and second is the necessity of domestic movie industry. First, whether it is necessary to adapt the film to go into foreign industry, and so as we are talking about aggressively prioritizing, it is about movie productions actively trying to adapt and change the content, language, cultural traits, features, etc. to make this movie more attractive to global viewers. The government side has stated that, the domestic market is already so mature, so adaptation, that wouldn't be the most important thing. That we'll just put this movie in the global movie festivals, and then it will eventually gain global fans' attention. However, this is simply just wrong, because if you look at the Indian movies, congratulations on liking Indian movies. But of course, if you watch some content on social media, there are a lot of somewhat mild ridicule about how nonsense Indian content are. Like you're my brother, or she just watches her laptop on water. And they make fun of Indian people in the movies. And also, do you know any Nigerian movies, right? We cannot not simply say that Nigerian movies have a lot of population, but we cannot say that they are really mature enough to be popular in the global market. So we strongly believe that this is just a naive hypothesis, so there must be an adaptation. And also, the problem with adaptation are there are several things, but I'd like to explain that further on. And also, I'll take it later. I'll just bite the bullet and say, okay, then no need for adaptation. But it is highly unlikely that it will gain foreign viewers' attention because, as I just previously stated, these films are really not that mature of course, there will be some movies that are really mature, but it is highly likely that, okay, then we have 1 or 2 movies that are so good, so, okay, let's just push movies. Then there are 1, 2 movies really good, and then 98 movies that are really poor. And it is highly unrealistic to just push this agenda of, we have to aggressively prioritize exporting our films when we have a high risk of losing domestic, viewers. So it is a really, just a naive notion. And also, we can also think about the fact that there are also kind of negative or not 100% positive perception about these developing countries. So when we first think about, India and Nigeria, they are not that rich, they're just growing countries. And when we look at the videos of people walking on the streets and they're making foods in a very dirty way, their street food is dirty, that's how they live. And then we just give them movie, here is Indian and Nigerian movies, and then, I love these movies. This is just really unrealistic. We strongly believe that domestic movie industries and the entire structure and the entire the content and stuff should be more developed so that it can gain gain understanding of the global viewers in the longer run. However, in our side of the world, we strongly believe that adaptation is unnecessary, so we should not be doing that, and instead we should be focusing more and putting more resources into the domestic movie industry. The reason why adaptation is unnecessary is because there are so many different languages, different movie plot, feature, cultural traits, etc., and we have to make them understand what we do. However, first of all, there's different reasons that this is a problem. First of all, we can lose a lot of movie fans because, and domestically, these countries have currently a very different and cut away cultural. This kind of like cultural island. So these movies are really famous in India, but we don't have any proof that these movies can be global and can gain a lot of global fan base. And also, it's also a waste of resources because we should be putting more resources in developing our movies and our finding out our domestic Indian and Nigerian movies productions. However, they're just saying the productions prioritize exporting films, and it would be like, we're going to put these films in Hollywood so you can give me money, or we're going to be so much more famous in other countries so you have to give me money. Then there would be less resources that could be allocated to local productions that could eventually lead to the slower growth of domestic movie market. And also we talked about stereotyping, because if there are so many adaptations, then it is really likely that adaptation becomes a problem. Stereotyping becomes a problem, and this is actually the case because of the points we made about Indian stereotypes, but also in cases of minorities in the United States, there are a lot of a lot of Americans don't know 100% correctly about Asian people, and then if they just see one, I saw Kisingju, so you must be like this. I saw Gala Jashma, so the dingy. This is a really possible situation. So we really have to think about these risks from happening. But when we in our side of the world, the possible situation is that no adaptation, but we strengthen our technology, we strengthen our production skills, and then we make this a perfect thing. We make things, and they could be say things like, they said a lot of things about Kisingchung, but the most popular Korean slogan is like, what's Korean is what's global, right? So they have what's local is what's global. They have to focus on what's Korean enough, and then they should put this in global so that global fans can understand Korean cultures in a more correct way. So their best case scenario is a lot of adaptation, but even the most positive case, no adaptation, but a lot of stereotypes and waste of resources. But in our case, of course, there would be less interest in the short term, but in longer term, there would be a lot of global fan base, and it will eventually lead to higher self-power of the country. And moving on to the second point about the growth of domestic movie theater. In their side of the world, they just stated about K-pop, Parasite, as if this is a magical world, and this is how Korean films and movies become really famous. However, this is the result of a long time of domestic investment. Parasite, K-pop, they are famous for a reason. They're not because this is Korea. Look at this is so famous. No, they have a lot of investments, and K-pop has good dancing skills, singing skills, and they're singing in a group. Kisingchung also talked about a very global notion of social inequality.
It's a freelance assumption that
No, before. She
Oh.
had before 6 minutes.
My
It's
bad.
a frail assumption that we don't know any Nigerian movies because they're boring. In fact, we might not know them because Nigeria is not aggressively pursuing exporting movies.
But then, even if they just, so I mentioned that there are some stereotypes about these developing countries, so we really should be thinking about how global fans are actually viewing this movie industry. So I would like to just make simple points. So we have to put more capital so that we can find out aspiring and pioneering movie directors in this country, and also domestic, yeah, so we have to focus more on domestic industries, thereby making it more global and things. Thank you for this.
I thank the author for the speech. I'd like to invite the author prize to close off bench case. Here.
I will start my speech in 3, 2, 1. Hello everyone. First thing that I want to emphasize in my reply speech is the Deputy Prime Minister stated that the large volume is showing that is the time that we can do the aggressively export for the global market, but we want to state it that just we can take a normal videos and upload for as a film as a producer, and it's not show that as a large volume and large quantity don't show that there's also like high quality. So we are saying in our cases we need gradual and slow adoption and our own quality, like mature quality, then a radical and fast exporting to the global market, and it will be much more good for our industry in the first case, because that will be also that will be also to reflect our own culture much more true, and it will be also show the much more quality films to the other investors in the other countries, and it will be much more good for the financial part instead of our just like wasting our financial movies in the exportation to the global market. So, and also I want to fix the example of the Turkish people. I want to explain that in further. The thing that I want to explain is if you largely publish and largely introduce to the movies in the other side, like 100 movie, it will be some characterization, different characterization of the people, of the Turkish people, for example. Maybe there is a characteristic of the Turkish people is not generous at all, and it can be seen for the other people in the other country, and it can be make a wrong image in their minds, and it can also make a problem to foreigners in that country. Even if it's a specific example, in our side we are reducing that kind of the misunderstanding, because we are focusing on the first domestic industry, and in the domestic industry they will see how their culture reflected in the first place, and they will know that how they want to represent themselves in the all together, and they will have a right to make this film popular or not. And it will be also a fact that we know that in the film festivals there will be popular films in the domestic industry, and the domestic people itself know that how they will present in the global market, and it will be also reduce the misunderstandings about stereotyping, because stereotyping is wrong when it's wrong emphasizing. But in our case we are focusing on the domestic people opinions, so they will know that how they can be represented in the first place in the global market. So it will be more important for us to about like to reflection of the successful movies. And I will want to summarize all the things in 7 steps. In our case, first we will give our financial resources to important movies that we want to represent us in the global market. Second, our domestic market will be grow, because we are not wasting our financials to do just like aggressively prioritizing the unquality films. We are give our financials to the more quality of visualize or audience, or like producers can be like higher, much more quality like of much more successful producers. And third, we will attend with our strongest films like the film festivals. Also, our domestic audience can also say about introduce our films itself, and it will be good to yes. And the fourth year will be more become more popular, and five. And as their domestic audience know the movie, it will be much more good to represent, and it will be also reduce their benefit. They only serve as a cultural reflection.
Thank you all for final speech. To close around, I'd like to call upon the government party here.
I would like to start my speech in 3, 2, 1. So movie actually itself, we think, is a tool of diplomacy in these days. Especially the globalization is happening. The movie itself can actually work as a tool of diplomacy. It can actually have more people understanding the cultures in globalization. Movie can be used as a tool to explain the cultures and make people understand about their cultures. So in these kind of reasons, we the government thinks that why government has stronger arguments. We would like to point out what the opposition has failed to mention about. Firstly, we would like to mention about the point of adaptation. Firstly, we would like to mention about the quality of the movie itself. The opposition is actually mentioning that if the movies of aggressively prioritized exporting would be in low quality, and these large volume of movie production will have low quality. But actually, we know that they're actually it does not stand, because actually they are not having low quality itself. And if the government is, if the opposition is saying like all the movies in Indian or in the Bollywood is having a low quality and low budget, is it really true? We should think about it, because we actually know that there are very good movies in India too, such as the Three Idiots. Many of the people have been seen. So in this kind of view, we should not claim that every movie of the large volume of movie production we are mentioning about has low quality. So the low quality, the point of low quality is a failure, we think. And we also want to talk about how will the movie industry improve. So the opposition was keep talking that if we do not be inside the domestic market, the movie will fail in the global market itself, and the industry might not improve because they would not have feedback. However, feedback can be implied in our side too, because we are actually trying to get in the global market, and there are much more people in the global market who can give feedback. And also, as our whip mentioned, the exportation can be a reason for the people in the domestic country to see. As she mentioned as an example, someone who saw Gisaengchung because it went to the Oscar can actually be a reason why the domestic people can see. So we do not think that it will only help the global people, it will only help the global market industry, but also help people in the domestic country to have the reason why to see that movie. So keeping people in a movie, and actually the third place where stereotype comes, if the government was keep talking that if it was 1 or 2 movie being exported, it would have stereotype. Even we bite the bullet, even though 1 or 2 parts can have stereotype, since the movie itself has lots of parts and that would be only a slight part of the movie itself, it wouldn't bring all the stereotypes to the people. We should measure the points that the government was actually talking about. There would be more diversity if we do not bring those kind of movies inside. It would just left as a stereotype, as opposition was keep talking about. The minorities are less known, so they have more stereotypes. But the government was keep explaining why we should keep exporting the movies and keep explaining those kinds of thoughts throughout the movies. Finally, we would so in these kind of reasons of so in these kind of diversity bringing reasons, we, the government, strongly believe that today we have won those motions.
EFL final round. Debaters can cross for shake hands. Thank you for the round.